Should stop defunding the police like they've done in New York, like they've done in New York. I just told you.
But you denounced them. Do you denounce
I've always denounced any form of any of that. You have to denounce. But I also, Joe Biden has to say something about Antifa. It's not a philosophy. These are people that hit people over the head with baseball bats. He's got to come out and he's got to be strong. And he's got to condemn Antifa. And it's very important that he does it.
I condemn white supremacy, the president says in his Trumpian way, but he says it very clearly. You have to denounce it. Of course you denounce it. You have to denounce any form of white supremacy. Do you think that's going to stop the questions? This is the classic media bias at work. Imagine if Joe Biden said, if he was willing to answer the question about court packing, and he gave a very clear, very decisive answer, no, I will not pack the Supreme Court. And then everywhere he went for the next month, journalists were shouting, are you going to break constitutional norms by packing the Supreme Court? You'd say, what's wrong with these journalists? Are they hard of hearing or something? Why don't they didn't catch what the president said? It's already, or rather what Biden said, it's already been made clear. But the point is not getting an answer. The question is an allegation. You all know what this means. You all know what this is like. And that's the whole point. This is the media doing Biden's work for him, which we all knew was going to happen. We all knew that was the case. And they certainly aren't going to try to promote Joe Biden's record. What is the great thing? This is a little bit like the aha moment when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State and one of her spokespersons was asked to name, I think it was one of the State Department press secretary people, was asked to name one of the accomplishments of Hillary Clinton's time as Secretary of State. And it was crickets chirping. I mean, there was nothing. There was just, oh, she flew a lot. Oh, you mean the giant private jet, which I've been on, that the Secretary of State has? It's very nice. You mean that she used that a lot at taxpayer expense to go on trips where people threw parties for her and she got to sit in meetings? Gee, we should all be so thankful for her service. But the real point was that there was nothing. They had nothing to say. And one of the problems that Joe Biden has, and would be a big problem if the media was willing to focus on it, is that his record is one of just, Joe Biden, in a sense, is the ultimate mediocrity. He really reminds me of like Bill Paxton's character from True Lies, who's like, hey, man, this is the Corvette. I got a few other interested buyers. That's really who Joe Biden is. It's just all kind of BS. And Trump calls him out on this because the media is certainly not going to do it. Play 18.
Last night I did what the corrupt media has refused to do. I held Joe Biden accountable for his 47 years of lies, 47 years of betrayal, and 47 years of failure. I held Joe accountable for shipping your jobs and dreams abroad and for bowing to the violent mob at home. Can you imagine these people, the way they take over these Democrat cities? I don't even believe it. The whole nation saw the truth. Did you see last night? Name one. I said, Sleepy Joe, name one law enforcement group that supports you. And then Chris Wallace says, don't do that. That's not. Can you believe this guy? I was debating two people last night.
He was debating two people. And it was the worst performance by a debate moderator I've ever seen. It was even worse than Candy Crowley's, I'm sorry, he did say, he said, I'm sorry, President Obama said it was terrorism. No. It's not actually true, but that's what she said in that Mitt Romney debate. You'll remember. This is even worse. The Chris Wallace debate was even worse. And it just goes to show you, even at that level, you've got a huge institution behind you, and you're getting paid millions of dollars, and they can have anybody they want do that debate, and they did not choose wisely. So Biden's record is something that we're not even going to be told to forget about it. They're just not going to bring it up. Because what exactly is it? He was VP for 8 years, completely riding on Obama's coattails. And what was the big thing that he did? What was the big accomplishment that he had? you'd say, Buck, okay, what about any vice president? Well, I think if you look at Dick Cheney, the problem that we were told was that he was actually running the government. So I don't think anyone would say Dick Cheney didn't do anything when he was vice president under Bush. And you look at Pence right now, he's running the coronavirus task force. One of the biggest parts of that has been supplies for the different states and institutions that are trying to deal with this pandemic. And the supply chain has been exceptional. There's been no shortages that have not been met. There's been no cupboard is bare, with the ventilators, with the PPE, all these things we heard about. No, the coronavirus task force and the Defense Production Act, that's all been used. So if you really look at what Pence's role is on the coronavirus task force, he's done a very good job. And that would be one thing. He's only been VP for almost 4 years now. That would be one thing that you would certainly point to. But with Biden, and you're going to continue to see this play out, the whole point is that they just know his name, they know his face, and he's there. Now, this is something I've come across in media where there are people who no one really understands what they're good at, but they've put themselves in a good position, and they've clung to someone who is actually talented and made sure they either are right before or right after that talent. And after a while, enough people just get used to seeing that guy or gal's face or voice, hearing their voice. And you're just like, okay, I mean, we're all creatures of habit, right? There's a reason why when I'm folding laundry, I'll throw on some show on Netflix that I've seen 100 times and kind of half watch it in the background. Cause there's a comfort to just, I've already seen this, but I'm going to, we like what we're used to. And Joe Biden, for all of his obvious flaws and all the downside, for a lot of people, they're just like, well, he's been around and the guy hasn't nuked Switzerland. So, how bad can he really be? Trump, they might say, is a little bit of a departure from norms, right? He's a little bit aggressive, whatever it is. And so that's the whole pitch here. You either hate Trump, which is 47%, 48% of people who vote Democrat. I mean, they've actually just been trained to hate him, not to disagree with him, not to view him as someone who can be a little rough around the edges, or that they just don't like what he stands for on policy. They have a personal disdain for him, which is why people on the left think it's totally normal to find out that someone's a Trump supporter and to hate that person too, because you're supporting a person that they deeply despise as an individual. It's not even just, you're a Republican, you support the Republican president. It's you support Trump. I hate Trump. That's their attitude. That's the way that they view all of this. And with Biden, it's, Joe, he's supposed to be inoffensive. He's almost innocuous. He's an old guy. He's up there saying, we're going to build back better and all this stuff. I mean, we saw the Obama-Biden economy was garbage. It was bad compared to what it should have been based on all the metrics, all the numbers. It was a slow, bad recovery. Why? Because Obama and Biden think that taking money from people, other people, of course, Obama and Biden are both super rich themselves, of course. But taking money from other people and spreading it around via government is just the right thing to do. Remember when Obama said that? It's the right thing to do. So that's what you do, even if it means that people are going to invest less, hire fewer people, spend less money, on long-term investments. That's what they want. That's what they think feels right to them. And even if it means everyone is worse off collectively throughout the economy, it's about the moral choice. And remember, socialism is really a religious creed without God. I mean, it's all about what the people in charge think feels fair. It goes against human nature, which is why socialism ultimately, everywhere where it's tried in its totality, it fails miserably. You can have some socialist sectors within a broader, more free market economy, and the free market will prop up enough the socialist entities within it. But if you go full socialist, the whole thing collapses. But we don't even have really this discussion. I mean, is Joe Biden a socialist, folks? This is a question that we should ask. I mean, is he on? Because the Democratic Party is. Bernie Sanders is. But what is Joe Biden? What does he really stand for as a politician? And just even the issue of the Green New Deal, for example, it's not clear. I mean, he said that he wasn't for it, but his website says, no, it's built around the Green New Deal. So this is exactly the approach. They want to have it both ways. He is both for and against the Green New Deal. Just like with John Kerry. Remember Mr. Flip-Flop, John Kerry? I was for the Iraq War before I was against it. Right? Remember that? This is how they play the game. They cannot be straightforward with the American people about what they want to do, because the American people would reject their plans. They'd reject their policies. This is why Chuck Schumer says about the Green New Deal and Joe Biden the following. Play 11.
We first have to elect a majority. If we don't elect a majority, we won't even be discussing it. But if we do elect a majority, we'll all get together and everything will be on the table. Nothing will be off the table. On climate, the bottom line is we are looking already at ways we can get comprehensive climate legislation done. And there are a variety of different ways, and we're exploring all of them. It is one of our highest priorities, and we are going to get something very strong and bold done.
Comprehensive climate legislation. That should terrify you. Just going to be massive giveaways to the government, to left-wing advocacy groups. It's going to just annoy you for no purpose. It's going to be mask mandates times 1,000. That's what you're going to see with comprehensive climate legislation if they get it. Oh, if you don't recycle, you're a bad person and we have to punish you. You're not allowed to get the car you want anymore. You're going to get the car that we tell you have to get. Your electricity bills are going to go up. Sorry. Got to have more renewables. Oh, you have less money to pay for essentials like groceries and healthcare? Too bad. The planet's at stake. Get ready for it. This is the left's real religion. I wish the Christians and the other believers, believers in God on the left would wake up, because they're just they're an afterthought. The real God on the left, or rather the real religion, is climate change, and the real God is Earth. That's the truth. It's really a pagan belief system the Democrats adhere to now. It's very clear. Just break it all down. You see it. Chuck Schumer's got no problem with any of it.
I'll protect your right to health care and build on and improve the Affordable Care Act. And I'll always tell you the truth. I'll always care about you, whether you vote for me or not. If elected, I'm not going to be a Democratic president. I'm going to be an American president. Whether you voted for me or not, I'm going to be your president. And I'll never forget the people, the working people of this country, because that's where I come from.
Whether you vote for me or not, I'm going to be your president. I do think the Democrats, that is their plan. Whether the American people actually choose Biden or not, they're going to try to make him the president. I think that's unintentionally tipping the hand a little bit, or speaking an unintentional truth there. It doesn't matter who the American people really want. They're getting Joe Biden one way or the other. I think that is the plan. We saw the most recent undercover journalism of the ballot harvesting in Minnesota. I'm sure similar things are happening elsewhere. And there's so much more both errors and fraud in the election than anybody realizes at this point. But no one's going to blow the whistle on it right now, because they're just hoping that it helps Biden win in some way. It's all so reckless and crazy, isn't it? But Biden as a uniter is so interesting. Did Biden unite when he was the vice president? I mean, was the Obama administration about bringing America together? I think we have to go back and remember this. I think that there's going to be a little bit of, not selective amnesia from the Democrat. They're just the media is going to lie about this stuff. But I do recall, I do look back now and see that the Obama administration's attitude was, we won, you lost, deal with it. That was the Obama administration's attitude from day one, across the board, for 8 years. We have power. You don't. Suck it up. We don't care. How many Republican votes? There are 435 members of the United States Congress. How many Republican votes were there for Obamacare? Zero. And Obamacare is, really ended up doing some things. It did not get to universal coverage. It was largely an expansion of Medicaid and also an intrusion into the individual marketplace. The only thing anybody thinks about or knows about Obamacare these days, though, is, pre-existing conditions. People forget that true pre-existing conditions that would be considered uninsurable, except in very special high-risk pools, are very rare. Now, that doesn't mean that those people should be left to fend for themselves. Quite the opposite. But there's this belief. I think Biden even said that there's like 100 million pre-existing conditions, or Democrats used to say that being a woman is a pre-existing condition. I mean, it's just nonsense. That's actually not pre-existing conditions. I do wish that the Trump campaign would come forward with a more definitive health care plan, but, John McCain didn't want to help get the Trump plan through the first time. Remember that? Nope, didn't want to do it. And so the Republicans, when they had the House and the Senate, were unable to get through the kind of legislation that would have really been meaningful. Now, they also left the filibuster in place. So I think what Democrats plan to do is to get rid of the filibuster and then do whatever they want. But Biden was a part of an administration that was very divisive. And I'm not going to pretend like the Trump administration isn't divisive. But this idea that Biden's a great uniter and going to bring everyone together, based in what? Why should anyone believe that? I mean, he's saying all the most horrible things possible about President Trump. What is it exactly that makes him any different from these other Democrats who suffer from Trump derangement syndrome and take a scorched earth approach to everything that they're doing in politics these days? The derangement is very real among Democrats when it comes to Trump. It has spread very far. And it even existed at the top of the FBI. Theo, you asked for a miracle. I give you the FBI. And James Comey used to run the FBI, which should make everybody really concerned about the chief federal law enforcement agency in the United States. I don't think it's possible to know that Comey was running that thing and feel like that was good. I think that's big problem. So just gonna put that out there. James Comey, Sancta Comey, this giant unself-conscious weirdo. He is both a giant weirdo and a giant who is a weirdo. He testified yesterday, and he did the usual, the Comey two-step, the Potomac two-step, Jack. He did the Comey two-step where he's just, I don't recall. Oh, I just, he answers all these questions, too, like he's a monk and he's in the monastery or something. He's like, well, that's a very interesting philosophical question. Did I, in fact, lie on that sheet about whether or not this person was a Russian asset? I cannot really recall right now, sir, the statement that it's all very games. It's just playing games. It's all obvious when you listen to this guy, the way that he does this. Play 13. Here's Comey yesterday.
On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the top of the line, great, how would you rate the Crossfire Hurricane investigation in terms of being done thoroughly, by the book, an investigation the FBI should be proud of?
I'm not sure I can apply a number scale, but I would say in the main it was done by the book, it was appropriate, and it was essential that it be done.
Okay, so you're proud of it?
Overall, I'm proud of the work. There are parts of it that are concerning, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but overall, I'm proud of the work.
Overall, he's proud of it. Of course he is. What a disgrace. Proud of the investigation of the Trump campaign for Russia ties that did not exist. Proud of the lives ruined as a result of this fairy tale that Donald Trump worked with the Russians. Does he want to sit down? I would really love to have Roger Stone get to sit at a table with James Comey and have him say that he's proud of the work that Crossfire Hurricane did. And then, of course, the follow-up special counsel investigation, sending dozens of agents into Roger Stone's home at 5 a.m. Remember, no-knock warrants are horrible, but sending a SWAT team in to get Roger Stone at 5 a.m., for this guy's a senior citizen. It's a completely nonviolent, non-threatening BS crime to begin with. Yes, you cannot lie under oath, but he never should have been asked the questions in the first place. So you can't lie under oath, but let's keep this in perspective. Comey, he's going to skate, folks. I know there are people that will go on air and they will tell you, oh, James Comey he's going to get his one day. He already got his, like a $2 million advance for his book, and James Comey's doing just fine. He's doing great, actually, despite all the stuff that he's done. Now people know who are paying attention, who know what he's really all about and what kind of a person he is. But it's got to be honest with you, folks. James Comey is he's going to get away with it. So make it a bitter thing for me to have to say, but he's going to get away with it. Want to get a word straight from the campaign about what they're planning, how they're feeling, and what's coming up next. And for that, we have Mark Lotter with us now. He is the Director of Strategic Communications for the Trump campaign. Mark, great to have you back.
Thanks for having me, Buck.
So first, tell me, how was your debate night? Where were you? What were your big takeaways as somebody who's doing strategic comms for the campaign?
Yeah, I was in La Crosse, Wisconsin at a minor league baseball stadium with about 400 people who came out in 50-degree weather to watch it. And you'd have thought a baseball game was going on. There was so much hooting and hollering and cheering, even a few boos. But they were excited, and they left that debate. And they were telling me that what we saw in President Trump and his battle with Joe Biden and even with Chris Wallace was the same man they want fighting for their jobs and fighting for America and fighting for our interests first. And what they saw was that fighter. And they left fired up, energized, and ready to go to work.
What were the top issues? I'm sure this must have come up in your conversations, either from you asking them or just I would assume people would tell you, what do they want to hear more about from the president, or what are the areas where going forward do you think the campaign is going to put the greatest focus?
Well, I think that most people are shocked when they hear the actual record of Joe Biden and his 47 years of failure in Washington, D.C. And the president highlighted that during the debate. And, a lot of people didn't remember that Joe Biden voted for NAFTA, which shipped jobs overseas, and was a champion of TPP and a cheerleader for China in the World Trade Organization, which cost Americans their jobs. And that's a very blue-collar community. And I'm in Iowa right now, again, blue collar, agriculture, and they know that President Trump is fighting for them. They want to hear more about the president's plans, but they also are learning a lot about Joe Biden that they forgot, and how he really put their interests, their jobs, their families at risk.
Now, Mark, we're speaking to Mark Lotter, Director of Strategic Communications for the Trump campaign. Mark, the constant asking of the same question, I've been telling the audience today on the show, it's very clear to me why this is done, right? It's very clear to me that this is meant to be, when did you stop beating your wife, essentially? But, you do strategic communications. Is there a point at which, what can be done to counter the will you denounce white supremacist question when the president has now answered this so many times and denounced so many times that you have to wonder what the heck is wrong with the journalist asking the question?
Yeah, you wonder if the mainstream media and the liberals will ever take yes for the answer, because he keeps saying it over and over again. I remember this question in the 2016 campaign, and he denounced it. I remember it in the White House, and he denounced it, and he denounced it again. And yet they just won't take yes for an answer. And so it's just their way of trying to create this fake distraction, because they know that Joe Biden's campaign is imploding. They know that he showed America on that debate stage that he couldn't condemn Antifa. It's not an idea that was rioting, looting, and arson in our major cities. It was a group that is organized in terror that was doing those things. And Joe Biden can't even condemn that. And so what we see is that they'll just continue to focus on whatever they want to focus on, trying to help Joe Biden. But it's really a disservice to the American people.
Can you give us some sense of what the campaign, how the campaign is going to respond to this new debate format, and is there, tell me what you think about that, and also Is it a serious possibility that the Biden camp may pull out of one or both of the next debates, in your mind?
Well, you never know when it comes to their plans. I mean, obviously, they've done everything possible to try to hide and shield Joe Biden from the American people. And you've already, before the first debate, had a lot of Democrat leaders saying he shouldn't debate at all because they were worried about Joe Biden continuing to look bad on a national stage. But as our campaign has said, this is just another example of the mainstream media, the liberals in Washington, D.C., the swamp, changing the rules whenever their candidate gets pasted like he did by Donald Trump. And so here we go again. They're going to try to change the debate rules in midstream just because their preferred candidate did badly.
Is that a negotiation? How does that work with this commission on debates? They go to both the campaigns. Just give us a little bit of a peek behind the curtain with that. Can you guys say, no, we're not going to have mics cut off by, I don't know, the next debate moderator, has he already been picked? Who is it? Because whoever it is, I'm probably not going to trust the person.
Well, I forget the name, but they've already been named. And I do know that Susan Page from USA Today will be actually moderating the vice presidential debate on Wednesday. But there's ongoing discussions with the campaigns on this, as you saw in the run-up to Tuesday's debate. We were obviously asking, would Joe Biden at least let us look to make sure he's not wearing an earpiece? So we know that he's not getting fed the answers or fed one-liners from his team backstage. They refused that. They had asked for multiple breaks during a 90-minute debate, something that we had refused. So there's always those ongoing discussions. I'm not going to get involved, obviously, in what currently is being done because I'm actually on the road here with the vice president in Iowa and not in Washington, D.C., next to where all those discussions are happening.
Speaking of Mark Lauder, Director of Strategic Communications for the Trump campaign, you mentioned the VP. You're on the road with him now. Give us a look ahead to what the VP is going to be doing to make his case for the administration across the country and what the American people will be seeing, at least those of us who care about what the Trump campaign is doing for the next week or two.
Well, we're going to keep on the road, and it's not just here like in Iowa today with the vice president, where he'll not only be talking to the people of Iowa, but there is a key congressional district in Nebraska, which is obviously right next door, that also is important to us retaking control of the House of Representatives. But it's also important in the Electoral College because the way Nebraska is one of those unique states, there's only two that actually awards their Electoral College votes a little differently than everyone else. So it's a very important stop here. You're going to continue to see the president out on the road. And we also have bus tours. I'm getting ready to get on one across the state of Iowa for 3 days myself. You're going to see not only the president, the vice president, but key campaign officials, the president's children out there in those battleground states. And, Joe Biden might call them. He called a breakfast lid, apparently a little after 11 o'clock today. It's like, we're going to be out there working full time. Nobody can keep up with President Trump, but we're going to do our best to try.
You're a professional. You work in this area. I just got to ask, this calling of lids by the Biden campaign, how unusual is this and what the heck is going on?
Well, you really have to ask yourself. Obviously, it's clear what their strategy is. They just don't want to make any news. That's why you get Joe Biden out there not even answering a question from Chris Wallace about what he thinks about packing the court. And it's interesting that he says it's a distraction created by President Trump. No, it's a distraction created by his party. It was his party's leaders who are talking about nothing being off the table, eliminating the filibuster, eliminating the Electoral College, packing the Supreme Court. Just like what we're seeing going on with these debates, they're just willing to change the rules whenever they don't get the outcome that they like. They're like children, if they don't like it, they'll take their ball and go home. And so we're not going to fall for that. We're going to continue asking those questions. We're going to continue getting out there, talking to the people. There's hundreds upon hundreds of people that come out, thousands for the president and for the vice president. But even with our bus tours, we're getting hundreds of people. We're out there knocking on doors, reaching voters directly where they live, and there is such energy to elect this president. Things are looking very good for us and continuing to improve.
Base turnout or independence? What do you think, when all said and done, is going to be the defining category for who wins this election?
Well, I think it's all of the above. Obviously, we want to make sure that we get everybody out from that supports this president, loves this country, and make sure they get out their vote and make sure it gets counted. Independents, they're going to make their decision, and typically they make their decision late in the process. We're going to continue fighting for them as well because the choice here is stark. we are a recovering economy from the pandemic, and we've still got a ways to go, but we are on the road ahead of where we should have been. And yet Joe Biden is talking out there about putting $4 trillion in taxes on the economy and taking away, adding a bunch of new regulations. That's not the way to keep the economy growing. That's going to put it back into a tailspin. And so I think a lot of people out there notice that. They know that Joe Biden has said he wants to shut it all down again. That's not what America wants. They want to get back out there to work. They want to get back out there to school. And they know that President Trump's the only one who's doing it.
Yeah, I hope everybody remembers one area where Joe Biden does have considerable expertise is in weak economic recoveries. So he's got some ability on that one. Mark Lotta, everybody, Director of Strategic Communications for the Trump campaign. Mark, good luck out there. Give the vice president my best, and thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely, Buck. Good to talk to you again.
Friends, there's no good faith reason to ask a question over and over again when you don't plan to accept the answer, no matter how many times it's given. But our media doesn't care. That's why our national media is unsalvageable. Kayleigh McEnany, though, she's smacking some fools around today at the White House on exactly this issue. We're gonna let you really hear this. We're gonna air out this exchange. Let you really get into this. Play it.
Statement without ambiguity or deflection. As the person who speaks for the president, does the president denounce white supremacism and groups that espouse it in all their forms?
This has been answered yesterday, the day before, by the president himself on the debate stage. The president was asked this. He said, sure, 3 times. Yesterday, he was point blank asked, do you denounce white supremacy? And he said, I've always denounced any form of that. I can go back and read for you in August 2019, in one voice, our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy. In August of 2017, racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups. I have an entire list of these quotes that I can go through with you. He has condemned white supremacy more than any president in modern history.
Just to clear it up this morning, can you, naming it, make a declarative statement that you denounce, that the president denounces it?
I just did. The president has denounced this repeatedly. The president was asked this. You're contriving a storyline and a narrative.
I'm just asking you to put this to rest.
I just did. I read you all of the quotes, and if you need to see them in writing, I will put them in an email. Hold on.
So, Kayleigh, can you right now denounce white supremacy and the groups that espouse it?
The president has denounced white supremacy, the KKK, and hate groups in all forms. He signed a resolution to that effect. The president just last week, perhaps you all weren't covering it, but just last week expressed his desire to see the KKK prosecuted as domestic terrorists. This president had advocated for the death penalty for a white supremacist, the first federal execution in 17 years. His record on this is unmistakable, and it's shameful that the media refuses to cover it. Yes.
Thank you. The FBI and the Department of Homeland Security.
Yes. It is shameful. Enough is enough, right? At what point is it too clear, is it too obvious that they don't care what he says? It doesn't matter how many times the president comes out and tells everybody, of course, I denounce white supremacy. Oh, my gosh. It's exhausting, but they're crazy. They're deranged. That's the problem. They have Trump derangement syndrome. It's not just a clever name. It refers to something. It refers to a state of mind, to a situation. And they simply do not want to let this go. They don't want to let it go. And so they continue to hammer the president on this. It's embarrassing for the media, but they have no integrity to protect. I'm glad Kayleigh is finally just, because then the news story is White House, finally denounces white supremacy. No, they denounced it a ton of times already. My God. I mean, white supremacy is a hated thing in America. White supremacy is denounced. It is despised. You will suffer severe professional and personal consequences for your support of it if you actually are a real white supremacist, right? I mean, so this is all it's just nonsense. This make-believe problem that there's a president who is a white supremacist who won't denounce it. But they look what they do. They force it forces people to be on defense. But this is just like the way the libs call everybody they don't like a racist. You're a racist. I'll prove you're not. No, you can't, right? You're a racist. Prove you're not. Oh, you're a racist. You probably don't even have, they'll say to you, you probably don't even have any black friends. You say, actually, my best friend is black. Oh, so you have a black friend. Like that proves you're not a racist. You can't win no matter what. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. They don't care. It's just all a way of expressing their rage and disdain and everything else about it. Oh, we just want to get it on the record. We just want it to be on the record. It's on the record a million times. It's ridiculous, and we're all sick of it. But unfortunately, there's going to be more of this. Next week, I think there'll be some revelation about Russia, Russian interference in the election, and then they'll start talking again about Trump refuses to confront Putin. As if people living in suburban Ohio are supposed to be up late at night wondering about what the president is doing to upset Vladimir Putin. Putin is not a threat to you, folks. Putin is not, he's not invading. He's not going to crash the U.S. stock market. He's not. What is this? The country that we need to be concerned about that has tremendous influence here, that is silencing U.S. industry and silencing the conversation in this country in ways that suits its totalitarian regime, is China. Who wants to confront China? Donald Trump. They always say he's such a friend to authoritarians. Really? Because the only authoritarian regime that's a real long-term strategic threat to the United States is the one that Donald Trump was willing to do things that no president before him in the modern history of China, or the post-World War II history of China, no president before him has been willing to do. And yet, they act like he's such a friend to dictators. It's amazing. Look, do I wish the president had taken a different approach with Kim Jong-un? Yeah, but that's a problem. It's just not going to get fixed. We're not going to fix that problem. The next administration's not going to fix it. The administration after that's not going to fix it. North Korea is an anomaly in the world, and at some point it'll hopefully just start to change and turn into something else, but no administration has had any success in changing that situation. And Trump thought he would take a different approach. Maybe he was wrong, fine, but this is where we are. All right, this is the situation in which we find ourselves now. I'm so sick of all the BS. I really am. All the BS around this. Can't we have a conversation about what's going to be better for people that are trying to, run a small business? Can't we have a conversation about changing college and our whole system so that people aren't going deep into debt to do that? Not to have the government write checks for it all. Should we even be going to school for 4 years? All this? No. Instead, it's let's have a week-long chat about whether Trump is a racist for the millionth time when he's not a racist, and the people saying so are just liars.